Hi, I'm Alistair Shipley. Driven by the beliefs that everyone has something special to offer, I created Not So Average, the podcast that proves that you don't need to be in the top 1% to be truly extraordinary. Each episode spotlights everyday people from your community, the very individuals you might pass on the street. These relatable stories reveal that whether you're a jack of all trades or a niche specialist, we all have unique experiences and valuable lessons to share. Imagine if we all took a moment to realize we're all not so average. Let's get after it. Welcome to another episode of Not So Average. Before we get started, remember to follow, like, drop us a comment wherever you find our episodes. This really helps our conversation spread and puts us in front of more people who can learn from our guests' experiences. Today's guest is someone whose work first caught my eye years ago through a local brand called Canadian Heritage Roastery. Fun stories there. Fast forward a few years, I'm standing in a gallery in Whitefish, Montana, of all places, bonding with the staff over an artist they couldn't stop raving about. And it turns out he's from just outside my hometown. That artist is Michael Sydoryk. Michael is a self-taught painter whose pieces don't just capture wildlife, they contribute to it. Every brushstroke connects back to conservation and endangered species, making his art not just beautiful, but meaningful. Today, we dig into his journey from chiropractic student to full-time artist, the pressures and freedoms of building a career on creativity, and what it really means to live a life built around passion and purpose. Let's get after it.
Right on.
Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty darn good. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun. Yeah.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
Where did you first start looking for inspiration when you picked up a brush?
Actually, I haven't told this story in a while. The first thing I did for art, like I always doodled in high school and such, but the first thing I did for art is I just grabbed a big 3-foot by 8-foot piece of plywood because my buddies were making a beer pong table.
I was going to say starting small. Okay.
Yeah, they were making a beer pong table, I think 2 feet by 8 feet, doesn't matter. And they just put those fold out legs underneath it, and they just asked me to draw on it. And I used oil pastels, and I drew a unicorn battling a centaur with this like wild, I don't know, beer pong, ping pong ball design in the middle. And it was horrible. But it was 8 hours or 12 hours, however long it was, of me not having any concept of time and just like sunk right into it. So I've always loved art, but that was the first time where it was like there was a goal at the end of what I was doing.
Okay.
And it just was the easiest thing I've ever done, which is I normally can't focus on anything for too long.
Okay.
And for me to lose track of 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever it was like, I'm going to do that more.
So you got into like a flow state.
Yeah, and yeah, that's something I focus on a ton. Like flow state is it's a huge. That's like the anchor of what I base all my work off of, is how easily I can access that flow state. But yeah, I just grabbed a bunch of wood after that, literally from my buddy worked at Rona, and he would just grab me a bunch of plywood, and I would just take the plywood and then just spray paint it black, and then take oil pastels and work over top of it. And I did that for a long time.
That's a fun origin story. I like that. So how do you create kind of an environment for flow state for your work?
What's the book? This is The War of Art.
Okay.
Have you read that book?
I have.
Have you?
Often mistaken as the art of war.
Often mistaken as the art of war. Yeah. The War of Art is, and that's not great that I don't remember the author of that. It's a very common book. People will know. That book talks about how if you just get over that resistance of starting into whatever it is that you're trying to create, that resistance that you overcome is rewarded by basically creating the muse or getting you into that flow state, right? So if you just push yourself into working at it, you will find that groove, which honestly has been true. And people ask all the time, it's like, how do you continuously find subject matter to paint?
Yeah.
And it's like, you just start painting, and like something will come out of it. And then you just get this confidence with it. Confidence is huge. And it's not even so much that I'm like, I know exactly what I'm going to create, and I'm calculated in how it's going to come together. It's just knowing that I'm moving forward, and forward is the best way to go.
So do you have kind of I guess, a schedule, a level of routine, or is it just as it strikes you, just get started?
There's routine to it now. Yeah, I'll paint every single day. It'll change whether it's with my family. I got 2 young little ones here, so I try to put most of my time towards them. So I'll work either early mornings or late evenings. And it's just 3 to 4 hours minimum per day of good dedicated work, which is not that bad.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Which is great.
So was there a moment early on where you realized this wasn't just a hobby anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, pretty early. Whenever I do something, it makes it sound more grandiose, but I think a lot of people would resonate with this. Whenever I do something, it's never just to like dip my toes in. Like if like guitar, I pick up a guitar being like, how do I want to play in 10 years? Like I want to know how this is. And so every one of those steps that I take in those first 2 months or 2 weeks are based off of what I'm trying to achieve in that 10-year kind of visualization.
Wow.
Yeah, so with art, it was that right off the hop. It was like, I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but it was like, I want this to be something that is at least notable or relevant. And I didn't know that meant sales. I didn't know that meant, finding galleries. I just wanted it to be something that people like took a moment and were like, this is, moving, or it's good, or whatever, what do you want to do with that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
No, that's pretty good. It sounds like you put a lot of intention behind kind of your choices to act on something. So have you always been that way?
Yeah, with everything, sport, with everything. I never played, I loved playing sport for sure, but there was always that concept of how do you get to the upper echelon of this? Not that I'm saying that I access the upper echelon of many things in life, but it's like that thought of going there was always in the back of my mind, or if not the forefront of the goals of what I was trying to achieve.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. So you're self-taught, at least that's what I found online, which definitely takes a different kind of discipline. Were there resources or people or even like moments that helped you shape kind of your path as an artist?
Yeah, it's fun now being able to talk to artists who are trying to find their way, to reflect back on that type of question. I just started by throwing colors on wood, like I was saying. And then I really got good direction from my tattoo artist, who's John Roberts. His dad was a phenomenal artist. His name's Cameron Roberts. Okay. And he was doing figure classes. And at the time, I don't know why, but figure art, like basically just drawing live models, I just assumed was like the orchestra of music, where it's like, this is the highest form, or classical of music, where it's like, this is the highest, most like, the best art form. Yeah. And so I really wanted to do that. And I did figure drawing for a while under Cam, and he was honestly great in that he didn't actually give much direction or lessons. He was very good himself, and he would show what he would do. But then as far as what I was doing, he would just really be supportive of what I was trying to do in a way that seemed he was totally hands off, but it was always like he pushed you forwards by being hands off, if that made any sense. Yeah. So he was the biggest drive of like, there was teachings within my ways forward. And then I've had other people telling me how they went about doing their art careers, how they got into galleries, how they got into shows, how they approach sales. And just like anything in life, you hear all these stories, and I'm someone who I am relatively confident in my decisions. So I'll hear these things, and then I'll either take that information or immediately be like, oh, I'm going to do something different than that. Yeah. And then I find myself, coming back to those things that people have told me 4 years later, being like, oh, they were right, or anything. So it's just literally immersing yourself within that environment and finding all those pieces of advice and letting them percolate at different times. So yeah, I've submersed myself in art as much as I can with other artists or teachers.
I like that. And so this podcast, I've generally had mostly, I'd call them just entrepreneurs in the business sense, like they're starting their own tech startups or small businesses and stuff like that. So that you have you're my first creative guest, I guess I call it. Yeah. And hearing the relatability between what you're going through on a day-to-day is the exact same as these small business owners or tech startups and all that kind of stuff. So, having the critics giving you information and knowing when to utilize it, when to use your own opinion. And sometimes you, like you said, you come back and you're like, oh shit, they were right.
Yeah, they were right. Yeah.
But you had to learn that for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned your friend's father being somebody that helped you with your creativity, but was there anybody in your own personal family that had a creative side to them, or are you the first to kind of take that path?
My dad would always play piano, but he had the same 5 songs that he would just play 10 seconds of each, and it would create this beautiful 50-second thing that he would always come back to. But my grandma was very musical, and she said something that she always pushed me to try to find an instrument, because she said, if you have an instrument, you'll never be alone. That's what she said with her.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that hit. She said that at the right time, where I was like 14 or 15, that I was actually absorbing information. But that didn't like inspire anything. I did not grab an instrument after that. I didn't start painting after that. It just was always in the back of my mind. But yeah, as far as my family goes, I don't want to be insulting to anybody, but I don't think there's anybody creative within a long line of my family.
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't want to be insulting myself and be like, wait a second. My aunt will draw and paint. My mom's sister, she'll draw and paint. She's actually very creative when she creates things. It's like, it has this beautiful whimsical feel to it.
Yeah.
But no one else.
Fair. Yeah. That's fair. So you've tied your art to something bigger, that whole conservation and endangered species. Where did that calling start for you?
There was a few different things. One, it never felt right at the beginning like art was overly relevant. I have a totally skewed answer to that now. But when I started, it was like, why should I get people to care about the fact that I'm painting?
Okay.
Right? And so I actually, when I started painting, like I was doing figure work and I was doing portraiture, and I had no idea that I was ever going to do animals. Because I thought at the time, which is an insane thought, Robert Bateman is painting animals, and I don't want to enter that territory, because at the time I thought there was like 5 artists. And so once I painted my first bison, it was just that connection with what it was to have the eyes.
Was that on the U-Haul?
No, it was close. That was pretty close. That was within the first 10 bison. I started at like 12 o'clock, and I just had a small canvas. I started at 12 o'clock, like midnight. And then by 2 a.m. it was finished. It was a quick little piece. And the eyes on the bison were so uniquely connective in a way that, like, I didn't even try for it. I didn't know what I was trying to get out of it. But the eyes, you could add a couple highlights. And
could you talk about the eyes? Because that is such a pivotal point from my understanding of art. I used to have like an artistic background, but I didn't obviously take it to your degree.
Yeah.
And it was always like, if you can capture the eyes, you can capture your audience.
100%. And the way I do my eyes, and I have a bit more control of it now, is honestly, they start my pieces. I'll have it sketched out what I'm doing. But the eyes will really dictate where things go, because it's almost a mistake how I'm trying to convey it. I can create more emotional eyes, or I can create more like dangerous eyes or more assertive eyes. But if I paint an eye, it's like 6 brush strokes. It's like put out a dark background. There's a couple highlights on the bottom. You hit a couple of the flecks of light. But because we are drawn so to eyes, and your brain's just going to make sense of it immediately. You know what that eye is trying to convey immediately, and based off of that, I'll direct the entire piece that direction.
So, okay, let me get that right. So you create the eye, and depending on how it turns out, it kind of dictates the direction of your painting. Yeah,
so if it's like a more somber eye, like even just how I get the highlights in the eye, the highlights will change if the eye's focused on something far, or if it seems like it's really drawn in, or if it's a little bit more of a malaised eye, so a little bit more emotional, caught in its own thought. And based off of that, the rest of the brush strokes or the shape of the face or the shape of the intensity of the piece will change, just to cater to that eye as much as possible.
Wild. So I took you off the thought track, but you were responding about when you decided to make kind of conservation and endangered species an aspect of your art.
It's very much related to the eye. The fact that we just naturally are drawn into connecting like that. If I could create a connection with that eye, which just seemed to be intuitively natural to create an eye, like I just pushed it to a level that I was happy with, and then it seemed to be connecting with others, which was nice. And if you can create that connection on canvas of this is a bear and someone's staring at it and it feels emotional, if you can just add that concept of, you know, purchasing this piece or seeing this piece directs you into a conservation effort by purchasing it or just becoming aware of it, it just seems like there's value added to the art. So it was kind of that simple concept right off at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think art is entirely necessary just from the art itself, and it's wonderful to have the conservation added to it. But I think art is becoming more and more important just as art, right? So the conservation is nice to have, but yeah, the art is just as important. So I think they just play off each other beautifully.
Yeah. When I was reading about kind of that conservation piece, I thought that was really nice. And then you had some relationship to the Calgary Zoo and the Wilder Institute.
Yep.
You did Baffin and name the polar bears that you painted. Yeah.
I did. We're gonna have to verify these names. Skokie
and Baffin.
Siku and Baffin are the polar bears, and then I did Skokie, the grizzly bear that they have there. He was an interesting one. He was in Banff causing issues back in the 90s, maybe early 2000s. You can't be that old yet. It's early 2000s. And it was the debate of, do we put him in the zoo or do we have to euthanize him? Yeah. And they ended up putting him in the zoo because his personality was seemingly quite like aloof or gregarious, I think they said. And turns out he is. Yeah, he's thriving in the zoo. And so he's been there for a long time. So I painted one for him. And then the polar bears, Baffin and Siku, the two brothers, or just the pair that was found in Manitoba there. And that was fun. That was a lot of fun. That was just a good opportunity.
Okay. Yeah. Did they reach out to you and were like,
yeah, it was one of those things, like you said, word of mouth. It happens all the time. So I just had a commission that I was doing a bear. And then the couple that I was doing the commission for heard that there was an opportunity at the zoo, and they just put my name in the mix for me, and then the zoo reached out to me.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it was one of those great things. And the Baffin and Siku painting that I did, it's in the main offices at the front entry, and then it's also in the butterfly. There's like the conference center there.
Okay.
So if you have like a wedding or an event there, the Baffin and Siku are there.
You have duplicates of it?
Yeah. So in the offices, main offices are the originals. And then at the enclosure for Skokie is the print on a metal plate. And then at the conference center is the metal plate print of the bears.
That's going to be pretty cool to be kind of walking around your city, especially like the Calgary Zoo is pretty recognized from at least a zoo stance, right? And,
yeah, it's great.
And that Wilder Institute is fascinating.
They're amazing. Yeah.
So kind of following that thread there, like when you look back, is there a particular piece that you feel especially proud of? Like not just maybe even from the art stance, but the difference that it might have helped with?
The Baffin and Siku was a big one because there's a lot of reasons for that. It was a challenging piece. It's in water. It was a different piece for me. The way that I did it, painting a white animal was actually really hard. Because there's colors in it they're tough. And I was really proud how it came together. I have them playing in water together. And then this is kind of a little bit of a outside answer or a misdirect into how I'm answering your question, but that one was proud because that one felt like I saw an opportunity. I wasn't like overly on top of trying to get after, but it was literally I was painting Skokie, and then there was just like a small reference to maybe let's do something for the polar bears in the future. And it was like, let's do something for the polar bears right now. Like I'm excited about it, and through my excitement, it got me the project, which was a phenomenal project. And so it was just kind of that thing where recognizing that excitement is infectious. And so like pushing that forward, like, hey, let's see if I can direct my career based off of being excited. So that was a cool piece for that.
Where is your excitement for things gotten you opportunities like this before?
Painting large is essentially the easy answer to that. I just kept wanting to be like, how large can I actually paint? And that's led to, like, I have a piece at the Calgary airport, right down on arrivals door 2, I think, or something. Just a massive 16-foot piece of bison
International piece. Or domestic?
I think it's domestic. It's in that hallway in between the two.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Where the DeVille coffee is.
Okay.
And that was just, that opportunity came because I wanted to see how big I could paint. And then honestly, it was one of those things that I put up at the Stampede Western Showcase, the art show that I do there every year. and it was so massive. It drawed a lot of attention, and there was a lot of people. Whenever I paint that large, it always ends up actually going into a residential home, which is insane.
That is insane.
Yeah, this one was on the tipping point of it actually wouldn't fit into most residential doors.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the show, I literally ended up cold emailing just a bunch of places, Grey Eagle Casino, a couple hotels around the area, and the airport, being like, hey, I got a massive piece. I think it would look good in your space.
Yeah.
Are you guys interested? And the airport was interested, so it worked out great. And it was a cold email. It was like info@yycair.com or whatever it was. Yeah.
So that went through a few channels to get to the right
YYC.
people.
Yeah, it did. And that's exactly what they said. They're like, this just kind of slinked its way up the chain. Turns out we really like it. We'd love to put it up.
Energy.
Yeah.
I love it. So was that a case of when you do these kind of reach outs to, you mentioned Grey Eagle, the airport, stuff like that, are these commission pieces, or are these like showcases that help you better market to other people that might pay for your art?
Yeah, I don't do that a whole lot. I have done that in the past where it's just like a cold email for that. But the one show that I'll do every year is the Western Showcase through Stampede.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, there's an online presence where I'll send out a newsletter and stuff of collections and whatnot. Commissions always end up coming through the Western Showcase at the Stampede for the most part. And then it's just word of mouth, or there's an anchor there. Sometimes they come through social media and whatnot, but most of it comes through the Western Showcase.
I love that. You originally went to school for chiropractic.
Yeah.
What made you step away from that path, and what was going through your mind when you decided to bet on yourself as a full-time artist?
Yeah, so chiropractic was one of those things. Like I loved the profession. It's and I actually still practice it to a degree just to maintain the licensing, because it's an expensive thing to
let lapse.
Yeah, exactly. And I do love it. It's an interesting profession. I fell more in love with it when I started to recognize the lapse within our healthcare, especially for chronic pain patients. Mm-hmm. And so just being able to be a resource for that is awesome. But the biggest thing for art was when I was in chiropractic college down in California. School was demanding, but it didn't take up a lot of time. And I'm one of those students that I found a lot of time for myself. And so I just created a studio in my, essentially my dorm or my apartment. And art really took off when I was down there. So it was literally like having, I'm pursuing chiropractic, and at the same time my art's taking off. So both of them are on the runways at the same time.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so art really just was a ton of fun. Like there was a lot of excitement in having a sale of a piece or having a successful show. Like there's really no rush like it. And chiropractic's great. It's just that long, slow trickle of success that kind of comes from it. But the bet on finally just taking for myself was just truly following the momentum of the art. And I think it's incredibly valuable. Whatever you end up doing, it's cool to see the different avenues that allow for momentum, and like just knowing that little bit of extra effort can just build that momentum. And it doesn't have to be an immediate return. That's the coolest thing about art is I can paint a piece today, say it's valued at X dollars, and it sells in 3 years, but I'm still sitting on that value, knowing that's what it's worth, and hopefully maybe it just increases in value the longer I sit on it. So it's knowing that the effort today will pay off kind of thing, even if it's not like an immediate return. So just following that momentum with art made it so that, I could step away from having to just focus on what it is to be a chiropractor.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. It's interesting how through the guests that I've had on, there's a lot of successful paths that are running kind of in parallel of one another. And then you kind of just make a choice to go with one, but either one of them would have been, a success, especially with the types of personalities that I'm talking to too. They, like you said, you have a lot of intention behind your decisions, and you would have gone probably as far as you possibly could have with the chiropractic. Yep. I'm sure there would have been multiple locations, something like that.
Yeah, it's just recognizing the avenues of success, right? Like I think it was like a jarring realization that, there wasn't just the opportunity of career of lawyer, doctor, like whatever, accountant, just the single named things. I remember someone telling me where I'm the chief sales management of whatever, and I couldn't keep up, and I was like, holy smokes, that's a job. that was taking the veil off my eyes. I know that sounds stupid, but it's literally like there's a job for anything, which means there's an avenue for success anywhere.
Yeah.
And art's really cool that way, because I've changed my business plan within art on the fly and numerous times, right? Like there, you can be a strictly online sales or online presence, and you can be very successful with that. There's a lot of guys doing that, and they're doing very well. You can run the gallery scene where, you know, the gallery is doing a lot of work for you. You're getting volume out there. You're still doing it in a way that's exciting so that your work is relevant, or you're showing up yourself at all these different shows, and that, you know, leads to sales and then leads to more success. But you can dance in between those worlds fluidly at any moment. And all of them make sense, but then you can also find your own path within them. It's the same for chiropractic. It'd be the same for anything. It's just finding what seems to settle and make sense to you, which is cool.
So you said that you've redefined kind of your business model a few times within your art. A big component of this podcast is kind of redefining what does success look like to people. So I guess my question to you is like, what does your idea of success for what you're doing look like?
Yeah. I had a teacher. So chiropractic college taught lots of things, even outside of chiropractic. I had a teacher who said, and it stuck with me, and I think this is a common thing people say, is success is just being able to look at a dinner menu when you're out and ordering anything you feel like, right? Just being like, I want the steak tonight, and not having to be like, oof, that's going to, you know, why would I get that when a burger's $18 kind of thing? I could get a steak for $50. If you don't have to think about it, I think that's a really cool place to be. And then building on that is having time. Because the one thing with the professions that I have, and especially with art, is it's all my time, right? So my time at the canvas leads to sales, which then leads to income, which is the success from that standpoint. But that's a huge investment of time consistently. And so I value a lot of my days as that allocation of time. And so success primarily at this point is making sure that I have as much time allocated to the things that I love, my family, my kids. I do love painting, so it's not a bad thing to be painting, but making sure that I'm present in the things that matter in life and not having to stress about that presence.
I'm not going to ask anymore. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that. So I think this came from actually my friend, Taylor. Balancing creativity and business can be tricky. How do you navigate painting what you feel versus painting what you know might sell?
That was impossible for a while. I now paint what I feel. Like I'm actually closing my door on commissions for a lot of things coming up. Commissions are one of those things where if someone comes to me with an idea and they're excited about the art and we can both find an idea that we're excited about, it's great.
Excitement once again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's that organic process that has to happen. So if a commission comes about organically, it's great. Then there's a lot of situations where commissions are, you know, they like what you do, but they want to see you push it this direction, which can be fun, but then you're just catering to a direction that you might have never stumbled into, which again can be a good thing. But the pressure with commissions comes from, or creating something that will sell is the same thing, is if you walk into the gallery and you see something and you go, I love that, we're done. That's fantastic. That's a wonderful interaction to have. If we say, hey, can you create me something that I'm going to love? There's a lot of things that we have to find with that. So we can make it better for you where you fall in love with the process, fall in love with the interaction that we have while we're doing it. It can create a really cool story by the end of it. But it's a high pressured thing to create something that is removed from yourself that way.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I think that, like music, when someone's writing and singing a song, I mean, this isn't very fair, singer-songwriters, I think when they convey their own personal story, it actually has a larger affect on the audience than if we're trying to grab as much as that audience as possible as the original goal. So the more personal you make it, and I think...
It's that authenticity, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Rick Rubin, I think, said this in his book. I'm pretty sure, so I think I'm stealing it. Is the more individual you make it, the broader audience it's going to have. And I actually really agree with that. Because I've been asked before by galleries, it's like, hey, your bears are really selling. Let's paint more bears. And the moment they ask me to paint more bears, they stop selling. And it's because I think to make it cheap is I'm not excited about it. I'm just becoming a craftsman. I'm just doing the work to put another bear out versus being like, this is going to be a cool bear. So there's a balance there, and there's no left or right. There's definitely a middle ground to play within, but I normally end up trying to paint just for my own excitement.
So you said that you're about to close the door on a few commissions. Is that a particular style? I'm hoping you're not getting away from bison.
No. And that's the thing,
That's
right?
me
Like,
personally. I'm trying to save up my dinero, so get one of those. I need a wall big enough. That's the actual thing.
Well, I am actually learning how to paint smaller for that reason. It's like painting large is actually a lot easier for me than it is smaller.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's why I'm painting large. Is the larger it is, the easier it is.
That kind of reminds me of this quote that somebody said. Oh my gosh, now it's going to fail me. I wanted to write you a short letter, but I didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And there's actual difficulty in concentrating something to its like bare minimum components. Yeah.
It's hard. People who paint small, I mean, there's different techniques and all that stuff, but the way I paint is large is conducive to what I do, and to tone it down, like you lose a lot of energy from it.
You and I were kind of talking about this off the mic, but around selling in galleries and stuff like that. So how do you personally feel about selling through galleries versus selling independently?
Yeah, it's a journey. It took a long time to figure out what made sense here for me. Selling personally is always great. In the beginning, when someone's starting with art, the toughest thing is figuring out your value, right? Like if you say this piece is worth $5,000 and then someone goes, well, I'll give you $4,000. It's really tough to not be like, oh yeah, that's still a lot of money. I'll take it. But that just devalued your piece, right? And so to figure out value, one, that feels good selling at that place, and then two, having consistency, because you can't just be throwing money out and saying this one's $10,000, this one, I don't know, is $2,000. Like there has to be a reason for it. And normally that's just market solidification, right? If I say this piece is $10,000 and you can go, why? And I can go, well, they're selling and doing well at this price, then we both have confidence in what that is. And that's tough to figure out as an artist in the beginning. And so the benefit of galleries is they basically just solidify that price, because one, you're showcasing amongst hopefully like other artists who are pursuing the career to that level. And if not, showcasing amongst artists that are, valued higher than you, so that you can just be in a space that makes it clear that like there's an echelon of values that are constantly there within the art world. And so selling yourself is great because you get all of the return, but that concept of sales, there's a lot of pressure within that. So I've actually changed my mentality to be, I love working with galleries. You were saying it before we went live here, that going into galleries, the way that the gallery owners and managers approach, selling art is kind of
skillful.
It's skillful. And it's something that I don't want to have to be that salesman who's convincing you to buy a piece. I get excited when you're convinced to buy a piece from me, and I like organically getting there. But if you have someone who's skilled as a salesperson, and they're skilled, they're amazing.
Shout out to Fallen Leaf in Canmore. You almost got me. Yeah, almost got me.
Yeah, like there's some skillful salesmen. Like all the galleries that I go to, the people that you walk into the doors with, they genuinely are excited about art. So if I can quote unquote employ those people to work with me, that's a huge opportunity, right? So it's a neat thing to support the gallery scene. I also, like, the reason I fell in love with art was Dick Idle Signature Galleries down in Whitefish. I was walking Whitefish with a coffee in hand and just going into all the different galleries, and that experience to me is part of the art experience, right?
That was such a cool experience. So.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. And to have, like, Canmore's the same, where it has a main street full of art, like to be able to supply that experience, because art on your walls is wonderful, it's beautiful, but to be able to go somewhere beautiful and then also amplify that experience with art galleries, I think that's just a cool thing in and of itself. So I love being in galleries. I think it's a cool way to push art.
Well, that Dick Idle Signature Gallery was the reason why I reached out to you to be on this podcast.
Yeah.
Was literally go in there for a ski vacation. I guess it would have been New Year's. See the venue, and I got pulled in and started talking with one of the people that was working that day, and just asked, hey, like, how do people get into this gallery? And she said, well, it's really difficult. Let me tell you about this person that we can't keep in stock. And he just got some new pieces. And I think it was a cowboy. It was one of your smaller ones.
Yeah.
There was a there was a close shot that I was like, I'm going to take this back up the border.
Yeah.
Because it was a nice little cowboy. But when she showed me, I was like, damn, that's really nice to see this recognition down across the border. So
Yeah, and it's cool, and it was tough. It was very tough to get in that gallery.
But as she said, somebody weaseled his way in, and that was you.
Yeah, it was actually. I said it earlier that I don't cold email people that much. Turns out I do. That's how I got in that gallery. I literally, every time I produced a new series, I just sent an email being like, "Hey guys, what do you think of this?" And so
it's so fitting for the type of houses that are out there, and that whole Yellowstone theme going on.
Well, so Dick Idle, Dick is a very successful American artist, and now Colt, his son, owns the gallery. And it was, I believe, that transition of ownership where Colt, I finally was doing something with my work where Colt went, I think this is the time, like the market and everything is lining up that this style of art is working. And so going back to your previous question of learning from others, Colt Idol has been a really neat, he's got a very good sense of what's going on with business within the art world.
Like trends
even. Yeah, because he owns a gallery now, so he has to watch those trends. And it was a really unique perspective to dance on a few of those questions to say, okay, well, what's selling? As much as I'm painting what I want to do, you do have to be aware of those market trends because it can create a new opportunity. And if you can get excited about a new opportunity, then it'll just lead into that. So, yeah, learning from everything that you can within the galleries has been cool.
That's awesome. I'm really getting that trend of excitement.
Yeah,
You've
I
kind
didn't
of
realize that.
You pulled that into a lot of things so far. It's been great. So let's talk about social media. So social media has completely changed how artists can even reach their audience. Mm-hmm. You obviously have done a good job at that yourself. Do you find it freeing, overwhelming, or a bit of both? Like, kind of expand on your experience with it.
I think I do what most people end up doing with social media in that it's very freeing. It's very exciting. It's overall a positive thing. It's the amount of work that goes into social media. It is a full-time job. Yeah. It's like when I'm painting and doing and pushing my social media aspect of things, the social media is taking a good chunk of that time, 20 to if not 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Which I think is valid. Like, I don't think you should take less time than that. I think you can make it more efficient for sure. I think you should put in that much energy if you're doing it. But I'm ebbing and flowing with it. Like when I'm producing a series, I like to produce a lot of content. And then what I've changed my mentality to being is when I'm not producing paintings currently, like right now I'm kind of in limbo. I'm creating a couple new series now and it'll ramp back up. But when I'm taking time away from painting, I don't need to be worrying about posting every single day. Mm-hmm. And that's solely from a sanity thing. I don't think it's a good business decision. I think you should be posting tons. I think you should be making a cool culture around your work. Mm-hmm. But I also like the balance of sanity of being like, I don't want to think about Instagram today.
I just want to stay in my own little bubble with my family and just do my work.
Yeah, and it's all of that stuff, right? Like there is always, I love doing it. Obviously, I'm confident with it, where to be like, hey, look at what I've created. But then there's also those times where I'm like, I just want to create. Yep. Like, I don't need to be like, hey, look at this. So I do love social media. I think it's a really cool thing to do, and I think there's a ton of value in it. I've seen some people use it as the most amazing tool. Like, it's crazy how well you can utilize social media. But I think there's a dance of sanity within it that I'm trying to balance.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, you've done a great job at it. Obviously, you've grown yours to quite a substantial following. So that's really nice to see. Cool, so how do you stay true to your art when content and marketing sometimes feel like they pull you in a different direction?
Honestly, I think there's that concept of just kind of going with the flow and just being free to go back to what I was saying with the war of art. There is showing up will lead to continuous work, and that continuous work, if you continue to show up, will lead to inspired work. Like, not every painting has to be the most inspired painting, and sometimes when I've painted something that's not very inspired, it's inspired something pretty cool in somebody else. And so knowing that it doesn't have to be my favorite or personal best painting from my perspective, but knowing that producing something that I'm confident enough to put into the public eye can lead to mass or lead to a higher level of influence for somebody else is pretty darn cool. So if you're getting pulled a different direction from marketing and all that stuff, I think that's exciting. And you should, sorry to do that again. I think you should follow the flow of that stuff. And if it ever just feels unnatural, pull it back the other direction, right? That's kind of going back to what I was saying with commissions was, it's not that I'm against commissions. It's that I just need to have the confidence to know that the things that feel more natural are the things that I should follow.
Sounds a lot like alignment. Like what you want to do, what they want to do has to be in alignment. Yeah.
And it's also having the confidence and know how to organize those conversations so that the alignment is understood. Because I've had a few commissions and they've all worked out well. Like commissions have always worked out well. Where I finished the painting there, the communication is...
That's not what I expected.
That's not what I expected at all. And it's like, well, that's wild. I'm glad it worked out. But holy smokes, I thought this is exactly what you were expecting. So I was directing myself blindly and you were like happily... It's a wild... So it's a stressful thing sometimes.
So customer expectations is a trend in every facet of business.
Yeah.
Artistically and tech-wise. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, and then just to have the effort of open communication and stuff. As an artist, you can get lost in your own process and like, I don't want to share this yet because there might be judgment that I'm not ready for from a commission standpoint. I have learned, and I'm not always active on it, but learning that just communicate, just send the piece of information, be like, what do you think of it? And if they go, hey, I'm not loving where it's going, it's like, well, actually, it's not really going this way. It looks horrible because we're in stage 1 of 10 kind of thing. Fair enough. But having that communication is very important.
I imagine. Oh man, a level of customer support for the commission paintings.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. It's customer support.
So mindset, growth, these are kind of the questions that I want to ask you. So when you hit creative blocks and feel stuck, where do you turn to reset or find the energy or excitement as we keep trending on?
That one goes back to like I have a good confidence to knowing that if I just keep working, it will come. And there might be some like ignorance that works in my favor there of just showing up to the canvas every day is going to lead to a result. Like I don't know if it's valuable. Well, I think it's valuable. Like I haven't wasted a canvas in over 10 years. Like every canvas that I end up grabbing, it's not that it doesn't turn out to be, it turns out to be a painting that I'm going to put into the public eye, which is good. In the beginning, you're experimenting on a couple canvases. 1 in every 5 will be something you put into the public eye. And now I'm at a point, which is, I think, true for a lot of people. If I'm starting a canvas, this will be something that goes out to the public eye. And so knowing that you're going to find your way along the way, essentially, you're going to find the end along the way, is just having the patience and know-how of how far to push the canvas or what direction to do it. So showing up every time.
Just through kind of our communication, it sound, once again, I noticed like in that statement, intention behind your work. And there is a high amount of confidence in your own ability every single time that you put a brush to your canvas, it sounds like.
It's confidence. Yeah. I don't want to make it sound like I'm like overly like grandiose with what I think I'm able to achieve. It's just that knowing that like
it'll work out
and there's value to me doing that. Right. Like if I'm bold enough to share a story and then bold enough to try and convey it in this way, there's value to that. And I think people will latch onto it, whether it's, a perfect piece of art or if it's a struggle through a story kind of thing. There's value in people being bold enough to just share. Right.
What's your ultimate dream for your art and your brand? Scale, impact, legacy, something else?
Oh man, that's going to change next week. It changes all the time. I don't know. I think I've just gotten to the point where I just am excited to be a part of the persons, the people who are bold enough to share their story, which is great. It doesn't have to be the most exciting story. It can be the most melancholy story. It can be a story with highs and lows and notes of things that are interesting, but it's just being that person who's a part of storytelling. And so my best way of doing that is I love painting and I love being able to convey through paint. And so as long as I feel like I've pushed my storytelling abilities through paint as much as possible, which I do now, and I keep doing that, I'm going to be very happy with where it goes.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Kind of like the whole, just knowing when your piece is done, you'll know when you've achieved that.
Yeah.
You'll just feel it.
That's exactly it. People ask me that all the time. It's like, how do you know a piece is done? It's like, you just accept that it's done. And if you think it's not, it's not. If you think it is, it is. Like, there's nothing much more to it, right? Yeah, it's the other way to phrase that is, if you are doing work on the piece and it's not pushing what you're trying to convey forward, it's done. Right? Like, the more effort you put into it is not going to change its story, right? To be able to recognize where that is a very high skilled thing, but it's not even skill. It's honestly, the skill is getting out of your own way enough to recognize that.
I like that. I like all of that. So time flies when you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So reflection, if you could send a message to your younger version, maybe the one that's still studying chiropractic in California, what would you tell him?
Man, because I found art in the cattywampus way that I did, where, like, everyone has these, not regrets, but these, like, what would have happened if I went that direction with my life. Once I found art, all of those went away. It was literally like, I don't care how I got here. The fact that I'm painting, that's all I wanted. This is very clearly all I wanted. And so, just knowing, I knew that the moment I found it, right? So to go back and tell my younger self, it's like, just trust that wherever you're going right now that's exactly where you should be heading, and you'll probably end up exactly in the same spot, which is great. So, what are you, I guess, most proud of achieving so far up until this point in your life? Yeah, we've already hinted at it. Most proud of is just the concept of taking the leap. And it's a wild thing to say. I think people will care about my stories that I'm telling through paint, right? But I think people cheer loudest for you when you're unapologetic about it, being like, I love doing this, and if you can sense my passion in what I'm doing, passion's contagious, right? Like, I had someone talking to me the other day about, they collect coins, and it was wild to hear them talk about coins, and it got me excited about coins. And I'm at a point in my life where I recognize, you weren't excited about coins, you just caught on to that person's passion. Yeah. And so if you have the ability to convey that in a way that matches in with this wild game of, selling and buying and income and balancing what it is to live, then yeah, you should do the thing that gets you most excited and passionate, and moving forward with that. What's a motto or a quote that you find yourself living by? There's a lot of them. Yeah, you've been pretty good at you've been drawing on them this whole conversation. So. Yeah. It's not so much a quote, but it's literally just the, trust the, I hate it to be this simple, but it's like, trust the process, and more so overcome resistance. I think that is, once you overcome that resistance, there will be a reward. There's always a reward of pushing past that. And it's like literally the simplest level of resistance. For me, it's like getting my paints ready and putting them on the palette. And if I get the paints on the palette, there's going to be a reward on that. But boy, it's tough to get to that point, because you know what the work is after that. Once I put the paints there, it's like, I got 4 hours of diving into this ahead of me. And so once you get over that, you can make it happen. Just getting started. Yeah, I think it was Atomic Habits that talked about that. Of maybe it was somebody else too, about you have a goal set in front of you of going to the gym and getting healthier. Well, how do you reduce that down to its simplest components? You got to get ready in the morning. So go to bed with your gym outfit already picked out, so that 100%. It's already, you've gotten rid of that decision right out the gate. Resistance. Yeah. So I'm not good at that. Yeah. You just set up, that I need to set out the paints. Yeah. And then obviously that flows into something else. It's probably, get your tunes prepared. Yeah, what do you listen to when you paint? A podcast lately. This last year's been a podcast thing, but before it was always like guitar instrumental music. There's a guy, Ethan Hibbs. His work like pushed me somewhere else, and so it was wild. My Spotify Wrapped like 2 years ago was like 60,000 minutes, and 55,000 of them were Ethan Hibbs, and he's got like at that time he only had like 9 songs, so it's just on a repeat of 9 songs. He's probably looking at it being like, "Who's this maniac in Alberta?"
Shout out to Ethan. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. In closing, for anyone listening who's torn between the safe path and what really lights them up, what would you want them to take away from your story?
Yeah, I think it's honestly what this podcast is. I listened to your intro of like what the Not So Average podcast is, and I'm going to probably butcher your words here, but it's basically saying that you don't have to be the 1% to be this wild success story, right? Mm-hmm. And that was, I think that's what it is, right? Like when someone says, "Man, your art's amazing," it's like, it's not like I'm the most successful artist. It's not like I'm killing it in the game and like some type of celebrity status within this world. It's just that you recognize the infectiousness of that excitement and that passion that I'm leading with. And yeah, if you have the opportunity to do that, you should. Absolutely. And it doesn't matter the audience that you procure from it. The concept of you being able to expose yourself to that passion that's what you should be after. So yeah.
That's a first for me. Somebody reciting back my own kind of trailer for the podcast.
I thought that was good. It was, and I listened to it, and I was, I didn't like approach it with skepticism, but I approached it with like, how many podcasts are out there, right? And so for you to have a quote within your 15-second thing where it's like, damn, that's awesome. Like, that's really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I think your story is definitely going to resonate with a lot of people. They don't have to be in the artistic realm or not. Business related answers that you gave as well. Yeah. So for those that are following, how should they find you? How can they support you?
My most active way to do it is Instagram, which if you just look up my name, Michael Sydoryk, or it's wildform.art on Instagram. And then all my other socials and my website, they are lacking currently, and they will be improved shortly. So
we'll make sure to tie them into
Instagram's great.
Okay. Yeah. We'll make sure to tie them into the show notes. But that basically concludes the episode. For those that made it all the way to the end here, thank you so much. You know what to do. Help us get it out there. If you have recommendations of other people kind of in the Alberta area that should be on the podcast, send them my way. But other than that, thank you so much for making it all the way to the end. Let's get after it.
Thank you.
Man, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Your energy is contagious.
Yeah.